here we are today to talk about containerization. Thankfully, it's just a metaphor, and Kevin's going to be explaining why containerization is so important. One of the things that Kevin was schooling us on earlier was that it's really not so much about the technology, but about the benefit of it. But just for some of you in the room who are just interested in where the phrase came from, I just got this sort of quote here that I was looking at this morning. So it says, in today's solution landscape, containerization in cloud computing is part of the most solution modernization strategies. Businesses have experienced the days of moving from big iron mainframes to mini computers, then to client server, and then to service-oriented architecture web applications. The containerization of planning solutions is understood as the next natural progression. So this morning, what we have lined up is I'll be handing you just to Amendra. He's going to give you a little bit of an introduction into Optane and its relationship with IBM. Going to share with you a few things that we've been working on recently. And then thankfully we have Kevin from IBM in the room who's going to be spending about 30 minutes with us to explain why servers don't go down anymore with containerization and how you can take advantage of it, whether you're on-premise or thinking about going cloud. We better utilize that. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. Simultaneously, Sheila, I understand that everybody we're going to have some polls and some Q&A as well in the background through the messaging in the chat. Is that right?
Yep. You can see the upper corner of the screen. You see the Q&A and the polls. So you can just, if you have any questions, you can put it in Q&A and I will answer that on the later part of the webinar. And also for the polls, you can also, there are some questions that if you would like to answer. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. We're hoping that you learn lots today and then you can decide whether or not containerization is good for you for 2023. Amendra, please.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Sheila. Thank you, Kevin, again for joining us and talking about containerization. This apparently is one of the big developments that's happened in TM1 in the past few years on the backend side. So obviously, I'm guessing most of us in the room are passionate TM1 people, and we've seen the developments, especially around POPEX going on to SaaS and things like that, and really enjoying using it. And also, I think this is also what we're going to be showing today is going to go a long way towards countering the conversation. So I used to be a user and then became an architect, developer, and so was on the other side of the table. And these days I've been a vendor for the last 5 or 6 years. One thing that really pisses me off is when you go and talk to a client and they turn around and tell you that, oh, but TM1 is so old, Enterplane is new, or some other shit system, right? And go, this is new and TM1 is so old. It's so it just shits me to no end in trying to explain what the difference is between the different system and what the capabilities are between the different systems. And it's like comparing chalk and cheese. So you're comparing a V8 engine to a Tesla, I think. So here we go. So it would be really interesting to see how Kevin takes us through what the development has been in the backend. It may not be for all of us, but what it does is it's a really, really big step towards taking TM1 into the future. So really interested to hear that. While we're doing that, what I'll do is, obviously, this is not a sales session by any means. I'll drop in 2 links into the chat. One is for the training that we offer. It's $99 training. So when I used to run TM1 applications in other organizations, one of the problems I used to have is when you have a couple of hundred users, is trying to ensure that as users come into the system, they're trained up to be able to use, know the basics of TM1 and all that. So what we as an organization have done is one of the loss leading products we have, which is $99 training, 4 hours. You can send your users to it and they get trained up in PO and PEX, and it gives them the basic knowledge of how to use the system. What we found is it reduces the number of tickets that you get, support tickets, because people are not asking you simple stuff. They're able to pick up most of the things on their own. And the other thing we've done in the last few years is we've now, Kevin won't like it, but we've found that we're losing the battle against Power BI with Cognos, right? So a lot of the clients that we deal with are using Power BI and they intend to use TM1 data. And what tends to happen is, as TM1 admin, we spend half of our time dropping the data, pushing it into Power BI in CSV files and whatnot, and then answering queries around why the numbers don't reconcile and things like that. So what we've done is we've built a small connector between TM1 and Power BI. And I'll drop a link for that. It's a fixed price, $600 a month or something like that, and that helps all the organizations that are using it are glowing about it, because it just takes away the complexities and the issues around reconciling your reporting tool and your TM1 engine. With that out of the way, let me welcome Kevin. I'm hoping, and I know that most of you know Kevin already, so he is our biggest top gun on this side of the world in TM1, and he'll be taking us through the latest TM1 and the containerization of it. Over to you, Kev.
Thanks, Mandra. Still have to work on you managing expectations there, buddy. A little bit about myself. So I'm Kevin Jessup. I'm from IBM, based out of Sydney, Australia. I'm in the technical sales team at IBM with a focus on IBM Analytics. I've been using this technology for around 20 years, actually 22 now. I started at Applex, which originally had, who had TM1 back in London in 2000, and been lucky to go around the world doing TM1. So most of Europe, all of Asia Pacific. I had an AP role at IBM for about 10 years. And so I've been to most countries in Asia and Europe and so forth. And so I've been through the whole journey and the acquisitions from Applex to Cognos to IBM and seen the product evolve from when I joined. I think it was version 7.14 and all the way up to today, which is IBM Analytics with Watson. So what is the engine? So what it is effectively a modernized distribution of TM1 for Kubernetes. So we're distributing TM1 across what we call containers or nodes within Kubernetes. It's available from the 29th of June this year in Cloud Pak for data. So the version it was released in is 4.51. And we'll talk a little bit what Cloud Pak is and so forth in a few minutes. It's currently in what we call technical preview. So it's not what we call general availability or GA. It's currently in technical preview. We expect to go GA in Q4 this year. So in the next few months, we'll be in GA release of that of Analytics engine. It will be available as a SaaS offering later this year and early next year as well. I think we're looking at putting on AWS first. It's exactly the same as TM1, but just a very different deployment architecture, which we're going to cover today. So I was involved with the beta testing, and it was, I guess, very boring in that it was exactly the same as TM1, which is obviously our goal. So it behaved and the same functionality, same front end, same everything, but in a containerized version, and we'll talk about why that's important. It's predominantly designed for enterprises with a demand for scalability and high availability, and we're gonna focus a bit on this in a few moments. And then it can be deployed on premise or on cloud providers as well. As I mentioned, I think we're starting with AWS first, and then we'll be bringing on Google, Azure, and so forth moving forward after that. So before I start, I want to give you a quick demo of why we've spent all this money and all this time containerizing the TM1. What this video is going to do is going to demonstrate the high availability of the engine. So the main focus of, the main reason that we containerized Plan Analytics was to, there's a term in the market with two terms, RPO and RTO. So recovery point objective and recovery time objective. What the goal of this platform is to set that down to, most organizations will have, and this is from a disaster recovery point of view, 24 hours, 12 hours to recover from a disaster. What our goal was to set that to 0. And this is going to give us a unique capability within market, but setting the recovery point objective, so the amount of data lost during the disaster and the time to recover from that disaster, we're setting that to 0, and that's what we're achieving with containerization. So this demo here is going to show a user interacting with Planning Analytics. They're going to make some changes, and then they're going to transition to one of our Kubernetes engineers, and they're going to go into the back end and kill off the container that we're currently using, this user is using, and then show what it would look like from a user experience. So we're going to kill that environment off, and we're going to see what will happen from a user experience point of view. Do they have to wait? If this was TM1 today, they would have to wait for someone to start up the environment on another server. It was a hardware failure, then log back in, and then continue doing what their work. So this is what it looks like in a containerized version. Yeah, so he's going to play around with some of the filters, and then he's going to come in here and make a change. So that he's logged in, it's live. So he's going to make a 10K change at full year, and he's going to spread that back. So what he's going to do now, this is done during a WebEx. They're now going to hand over control to our Kubernetes engineer, and he's going to go into the back end at a Kubernetes level and then kill off the container that we're currently in. So Plan Analytics engine will run in a number of different containers to give us that high availability. So at the moment, this current environment is running on 2 containers. And what he's going to do is kill off one of these containers that we're currently on, and then we're going to transition back to that user, and we're going to see the impact from a user point of view moving forward. So you can see he's just killed that container, and now they're going to hand it back to the Plan Analytics user to keep working. So what the user is going to do now, on the top left, they're going to change the global pricing assumption. So that's 7. They're going to make that a change. Was it a 6? Yeah, sorry. They're going to change the 6 to a 7. You'll see they'll get an error message because that container has been blown away. Now watch what the user does. You'll click on the OK. It'll go to the top of the page and refresh the current screen. And then you'll go and do the same thing again. So it's going to change that 7 to an 8, and it will change the numbers below. So the user didn't have to log in. He didn't have to wait for the service to come back up. The changes he made in the other node are automatically moved across to the second node, and he's live and can continue working with the data. So very little impact other than that message that they first get. They just need to refresh the page, and off they go. So there's no data loss and there's no downtime. And what we can do in the back end is run these containers from a SaaS point of view in multiple different data centers to give us that high availability and disaster recovery. So that was the main reason for us, spending all this time redeveloping TM1 to operate in a containerized fashion. So a little bit of background of the technology that we're using behind the scenes. So you've heard us talk a lot about containers. So the reason that we chose containers is they're portable, they're flexible, they're more efficient than VMs. VMs run everything. So they load the OS, all the software, all the drivers, everything contained, and then all the software. containers are a cut down version of that. They don't have to run all that all the drivers and OS and so forth behind the scenes, so they become more efficient. And then what we can do with that is scale this out, so we can run across multiple containers and to horizontally scale the TM1 databases across a number of different containers. And it comes with a flexible routing between these services as well, to keep, to make sure that we're getting that scalability moving forward. And so this is based on a Kubernetes technology. So Kubernetes is an open source platform for maintaining a containerized workloads and services. And then this is based off IBM Red Hat OpenShift. So that's the product name for Kubernetes from an IBM perspective. So it's an enterprise-ready Kubernetes distribution solution. Then on top of that, we have what we call Cloud Pak for Data. So what Cloud Pak for Data is effectively a platform that customers can run either in the cloud or on premise. It's a OpenShift containerized platform where we can run a number of different integrated services in a single platform. So here we've got at the bottom, it all runs off a Red Hat OpenShift cluster. It can run off multiple cloud vendors and on-premise as well. And then from there, we have what we call the Cloud Pak control panel. So this includes things like authentication and so forth. And then what we have is what we call base services. So these are services that come out of the box with Cloud Pak. So things like Watson Studio, DB2, and so forth come out of the box with Cloud Pak. And then on top of that, we have what we call extended services. So IBM Plan Analytics Engine is an extended service, which we call a cartridge that sits on top of Cloud Pak. And so the idea is to help customers on their journey to AI. So having a whole lot of pre-integrated solutions that will go from collecting data, cleansing the data, and then bring it all the way up the value chain to AI, where Plan Analytics is sitting, where we're infusing AI capabilities like predictive forecasting, constraint-based forecasting around decision optimization and so forth. It's just going to take us through how do you deploy Plan Analytics in this new environment. So traditionally, you would download the software, go and install Plan Analytics, install TM1 server over here. You'll go install Plan Analytics spreadsheet services, which is the new name for TM1 Web, and then you would install Workspace and then configure it and set it all up. Maybe set up CAM authentication. So there's a bit of work to get it installed. This is what it would look like. This is what it looks like from a Cloud Pak perspective. So I've got a quick 2-minute video. So what the user is going to do is log into Cloud Pak, and they're going to go up and create what we call an instance or an environment for Plan Analytics. So what we mean by that is that the production environment is a dev environment, is a UAT environment. And what it will go and do for that particular environment, it will spin up the TM1 database, it will spin up the spreadsheet services server, and it will spin up the workspace. And they'll be all pretty integrated and ready to use. So let me just quickly play this video. So it's going to come to the top there. It's going to go into services and what we call the services catalog. It's going to search for Plan Analytics. It's going to click on this. Gives you a bit of a description. It's got some documentation and so forth on this page. And in a few minutes, he's got a few seconds, he's going to click on the far right there and then provision an instance. And by instance, we mean an environment like production, development, or UAT. I think he's going to do a development environment here. You can give it a description. And then down below here, you can nominate a different size, and that's there are some descriptions around those sizes, but it's mainly around what kind of high availability we want for this particular environment and so forth. Here he's got two options. So you can use CloudPack to point to an external TM1 data source and use, Plain Analytics spreadsheet services and workspace on CloudPack for data. Or in this case, what we're going to do is spin up the TM1 database within CloudPack as well, so we can get that high availability. So he's going to go and hit create. It'll come up with a message. It says it takes around 30 minutes. In reality, it's more around 10 minutes to spin it up. Don't worry, we're not going to sit here for 10 minutes watching this spin up. They're going to fast forward to the end. Although I wish they would fast forward a bit faster than they actually do on this video. They're going to just refresh in a moment, and we'll see that environment will be up and running. So generally, this whole process right here will take 10 minutes compared to IT going in and installing a TM1 server, a Plain Analytics spreadsheet server, a workspace environment, and so forth, which could take a couple of days, getting it all configured and running correctly. Here we can spin this up within 10 minutes, and what the goal here is trying to create a SaaS-like environment, for customers that run this on premise. So the environment's now ready. He's now going to log in and show you what it would look like once the user will log in. Everything they're showing you now is is exactly how the non-containerized version runs today. And you'll see it looks exactly the same. It behaves exactly the same. So this is the workspace front end. He's going to go in here, create a new book, point to that TM1 server he just created, and then create a dimension and so forth. And he's going to go to the top left. He's going to see that TM1 database he created. And I think he's going to add a new dimension and put some elements in it. So the time to value is going to be dramatically reduced now. Rather than waiting, if I want a new dev environment, within 10 minutes I can have it spun up and ready to go. Let me cancel this. It's going to create a new dimension. It's going to create some elements and so forth. So here, just most of you guys are all familiar on the call today around this piece of adding new elements and so forth, but he's just demonstrating that this environment's ready to go. So what we're going to do now, so once you've got that environment, so what we call an instance, we can then now deploy new TM1 databases within that environment. And so down here, this is the dialog box to create a new TM1 database. So you give it a name, but what has changed that's quite different is this number of replicas. So this is what gives us the high availability. So when we saw the video earlier, we saw 2 nodes running the TM1 database. So they chose 2 replicas. Obviously, if you choose 1, then it's not in high availability mode. Anything above 1 moves you into the high availability mode. And you can go 2, 3, as many as you want, and it will spin those containers up across the OpenShift cluster. Obviously, the more replicas we have, the more horizontally scaling we can have as well, and the more fault tolerance we can have as well. So what was our goal in developing Plain Analytics engine? So it was to provide a predictable and consistent and reliable experience. TM1, depending on how many users are on it and so forth, the performance can go up and down and so forth. With the horizontally scaling, we can, put 1,000 users across, 5 to 10 nodes to give that a more consistent and predictable performance. Rather than the end of the budget cycle and all your 100 users hit the server at the last second just to get their budgets in, the performance may degrade slightly because you've got more usage. With the horizontally scaling, we can have a more predictable and consistent user experience. Our goal was also to provide variability and flexibility within the solution as well. And what we're trying to do is, so in Planalytics today, administrators have a lot of access to the data directory that resides on disk, the config files and everything, and you can make a lot of changes, which does allow for room for error. I saw a client the other day, and they made a config change. It was a parameter that we no longer use, but something called lock pages in memory, if I remember correctly. But what it does, basically it locks, instead of using the page file, it uses real memory and so forth. But you're kind of overriding Windows's ability to control the memory and moving it between real memory and the page file. And it made the Windows environment quite unstable. So we're taking a lot of those config parameters out and a lot of those legacy parameters as well, to make sure that people don't go in and making adding config parameters that are no longer valid and then creating an unstable environment. We've also a bit of a difference between Planalytics today and Planalytics Engine is undev fails. So Planalytics today can't tell the difference between a null value and a 0 within a cube. We treat them exactly the same way, although they are fundamentally different. So a null or empty cell compared to a 0, someone actually typed the 0 in there, there's quite a big distinction between the two. In the Planalytics Engine, we now make sure there is a distinction between the two. In the past, you had to use a function called undev vals to work out if it was a null or if someone had typed in a 0. So that's gone away. So we're, again, simplifying the engine moving forward. We've done a lot of work around integration with other services for logging, auditing, metering, and transactions. So in Planalytics today, a lot of this is just in ASCII log files. Now it's actually been written to a database that you can query, and a way better experience of viewing these logs than we've had in the past. Plan for failure for high available services that we've already seen. Improved availability with 0 downtime for upgrades. And this is what one of the benefits of using containers, that we can do upgrades to the Planalytics engine live. And it kind of very similar how we're doing it from a SaaS perspective for the workspace. So we upgrade the workspace in a SaaS environment every single month with 0 downtime. You'll have that same capability from the engine point of view as well. So do upgrades without going down. And then the last point there, horizontally scale queries. So now we can, instead of having one giant box with 64 cores or 120 cores, we can now horizontally scale it out and put it across maybe 5 nodes with 10 cores each. And so from a hardware perspective, that's going to give us some cost savings. So it's cheaper to buy more boxes with fewer CPUs than it is to buy a giant box with a whole lot of CPUs. So we can start to horizontally scale. So was there a question there?
Yeah, Kevin, take a rest pause there, because we've got a question here from Matt James. I'll just read it out for you, Matt, if you're still there with us. So each replica has the full version of the TM1 database, right? So if the database is 500 gigabyte in size, each replica will be 500 gigabytes, correct? Thanks.
100%, yes. So you will need to have that, whatever your memory is today, and you're going to have 3 replicas. You just take what you've got today, and it will have it will run 3 of those. So it'll be 3 500 replicas. So you need 1.5 terabytes effectively if you want to run that size of that many replicas.
Matt, did you have any more questions there on that? Sheila, can our participants, do they have audio?
Yes, they have.
Okay. All right. Anybody else, say Adam Buckle or Zelia? Do either of you have any questions at this point, just what you've seen so far? All good then. All right, let's move on. Thanks, Kevin.
So how is TM1 different in a kind of containerized Kubernetes world? So the first point there around software network infrastructure diagrams are no longer, not required anymore. What they're trying to, the message they're trying to convey there is, in the past, people would, do an architecture diagram. They'll have a TM1 server, and they'll have a TM1 web server here, and a Plainalytics workspace server here, and an F5 load balancer in front, and so forth. All of that kind of goes away. So it's kind of a black box solution where it's just Plainalytics has been deployed in a high availability environment that's horizontally scaled with built-in load balancing. So you don't have to go out and build these complex network diagrams to represent just Plainalytics. Now it's just, Plainalytics as a service, and that would integrate with your source systems and so forth, and you could put that in your architecture diagram. But it's more of a black box solution that we're just delivering a solution or an outcome, and you can put that rather than go into the individual details. The TM1 in containers, that we don't allow direct file access. So you do not have access to the data directory or the file structure on the server itself, or even the config file either. And the reason for that being is, we want to lock that environment down. We don't want people going in and making changes to the underlying source files or anything like that. So there is no direct access to the data directory moving forward with the Plainalytics engine. A big change as well is the third point there. Logging is always turned on in Plainalytics engine. So in today's Plainalytics environments, you can turn logging on and off. If you're loading a massive data load from a database, generally we will turn the logging off, do the update, and then turn logging back on. That no longer happens within the Plainalytics engine. So logging is always 100% on. It's being written to an in-memory database. The reason that we used to turn it off in the past was it was getting written to the transaction log on disk, which was very slow. We've now replaced that, and it's now going into an in-memory database, and the transactions are stored in there. So and the logging is always on, and that's how we have the ability to keep all the containers or the nodes in sync, because all the transactions are being written to a database, in-memory database. So where they say no SDA and no CSD, that's standing for save data all function, and cube save data, those functions no longer valid in the Plainalytics engine. So if you ran them, they'll effectively not do anything, because there is no ability to turn logging on or off. Everything's always committed to the database. Backup and restore will be done via OData calls so PAA is Plainalytics Administration Console. In the environment, Plainalytics today, users can go in and do that manually by moving files around from the data directories. As we mentioned, there's no access to the database directory anymore. So this is all done using OData calls and through the administration tool to restore your backups and so forth. The fifth point there is around SaaS experience. As we saw in deploying Plainalytics on CloudPak, is just a touch of the button. Rather than getting IT to go and get some servers installed, making sure all the right software is in place, it's just I go and hit a button and I can start it up. Execute HTTP request. That's a new function that we've introduced so it's replacing what we call execute command. So what execute command will do, it can run a shell script, an executable from the server itself. But because we don't have direct file access, so those shell scripts and VB scripts and executables would generally be sitting within the file structure within the server. So now that we don't have that access, we're replacing that with a execute HTTP request. So we get the same functionality, but we're not installing software or files within the server itself. ODBC drivers are going to be replaced by something called ODBC IS. I'm not going into too much detail here, but just the that's the way you run your TurboIntegrator processes will still work, but instead of going through an ODBC driver, you'll be going through a ODBC IS service. And then you have the ability to pause and scale those databases. So in today's world, you can't pause the Planalix TM1 instances. You effectively just shut them down and then start them back up again. Now you have the ability to pause it and then hit play again, and it's all ready to go rather than waiting for it to load everything back into memory. And the ability to scale those databases, so as they grow and so forth, put them on more nodes or bigger nodes with more memory capacity. So TurboIntegrator, we've had to make a few changes to TurboIntegrator, how that works, mainly around because we don't have direct file access. So we've, and the first point there is not really around the, we didn't put that in there for the ability that we don't have direct file access, but we're just improving, some of the functionality within TI. So we've got a function called run processes, but effectively runs a number of ETL jobs in parallel and so forth. But we've added a lot more functionality around that. So functions like wait for any jobs, wait for all jobs, get job status, cancel the job, giving you a bit more control around how you run your processes. As I mentioned before, the execute HTTP request function for integration. And it's a more modern way of integrating, instead of using execute command. And then down here, the functions that we've removed from Planalix Engine, so execute command, execute Java, are around that we can't run executables from the actual file system itself. Cube set lock changes, save data all, and cube save data are all being taken away because logging is always on all the time. And then shut down server as well. That's going to be controlled through the Planalix administration console. So you'll be able to pause, stop, shut down, restart, and scale them from that interface moving forward. So what clients can you use with the Planalix engine? So everything that's based off the REST API, will be working moving forward. So all the clients that don't use the REST API cannot connect to Planalix engine. So it only accepts OData connections or RESTful connections. So Workspace, Planalix for Excel, Planalix spreadsheet services, Cognos Analytics, they all work with the Planalix engine. But things like Architect, perspectives will not be able to connect to this new engine. This is an important point. When we first announced this, there was a bit of a panic within the TM1 community around the world. I don't know how the message got out that we were going to stop Planalix as it is today, and all customers would have to move across to the Planalix engine running in a Red Hat Kubernetes OpenShift cluster, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We plan on running the TM1 server today, which is 209. There's nothing in our roadmap where we're going to stop running that particular server. So the idea is we're going to have effectively two engines moving forward. So the TM1 server, 2.09 server, and it'll probably go to 2.010 and so forth. And the Planalix engine will be running in parallel. So customers have the choice to continue to run TM1 as they do today, on a Linux box, on a Windows box, however you want to run it. You do not have to move across to the containerized version. So we want to make that perfectly clear. There is no, we haven't announced any end of support or end of life around this product, and we envisage both of these engines moving into the future. The front ends, so Workspace, Planalix for Excel, and Planalix spreadsheets will be developed for both engines. And they'll follow the same release cycle that we're doing today. So the Workspace we're on release 78. That works with the TM1 server today, and it works with the Plan Analytics engine as well, because they all based on REST APIs and so forth. So we plan to release in the same cadence that we've got today. So we're actually, all of these clients are actually being released every single month. And we're just going to release one version of this, and they will work with both engines. And it's up to our clients to choose which engine they want to use moving forward. But if you want to keep using Windows today, or Red Hat Enterprise Edition Linux environment, you can keep going that route, and it will be into the future as well. We are going to take some of the capabilities of the engine and backport them to TM1. So things like execute HTTP requests, even though you still have access to the disk within the current environment, it is a more modern way of running these particular functions. So a lot of the capabilities that we're putting into the engine, the Planix engine, are going to be backported to TM1 as well. So both, everyone gets the same benefits moving forward. What we're going to quickly look at now is predictive forecasting and what we've done around that in the last few months. And what I'm going to do is, so for those of you who are not familiar, Workspace, this is the landing page. And then down below here, I've got what we call your applications. So these are applications assigned to specific user groups based on their roles. So the idea is to have as many applications as you can across that span the organization and have them all linked behind the scenes. But this screen here is to focus the user's attention to the applications that relate to their particular role. So they don't see, if you've got 50 applications across the whole organization, certain users only need to see a few of those. So this screen here will be dynamically built based on the user's role. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you the predictive forecasting capability. I'm going to show you an example of it in this application here called Sustainability Scope 3. I'll quickly show you what the application is doing, and I want to just show you some of the predictive capabilities that we've built into this application. Also, the reason I want to show you this one as well is IBM, we really haven't produced what we call, pre-built applications for our customers. Some of our competitors have. We believe that from a budgeting forecasting view, it's a very personal experience with a budget forecasting. At its essence, budget forecasting is basically a strategic roadmap, a blueprint of what you're going to do short term, long term, and so forth moving forward. And everyone does it slightly different. So producing an application that can meet that is never going to really work because it's very specific to each organization. But things around sustainability, these are all based on United Nations standards and defined standards. So what we've done is we've developed a number of sustainability apps. We're up to 4. We expect to have 7 out by the end of the year that are all available for download from our website as well. So you can just, and it's free to all our clients. You can download the model, the books, and everything, and start using it. And you can plug in your data and off you go. So sustainability scope 3 is. So there are 3 scopes for sustainability. So scope 1 and 2 are looking at emissions from direct operations within your organization. Scope 3 is actually looking at your supplier emissions. And so, from an IBM perspective, we buy Apple computers. How much emissions are emitted in producing a MacBook Pro for our consultants? And we need to take those emissions, and when we're doing our ESG reporting, we need to take that into account. It's not just what the emissions that we're doing from direct operations in our offices and data centers. It's around the hardware we bring in as well. What does it take to make that? So this application here is designed to help, mainly from a procurement process, to help procurement make a balanced view on which suppliers they select. In the past, it's been very much focused on cost, or they may have preferred suppliers. But moving forward, what we're doing is bringing in the emissions by product, by supplier, so that procurement can come in and make an informed decision about which supplier they're going to buy their the materials from, and so forth. So here we've got just a bit of a landing page, just showing things like actual and projected spend and emissions by supplier, by category of, in this case, that we need to buy from our suppliers. So I've got packing containers, product and storage, and so forth. Down here, I've got the emissions footprint by supplier. And on the right here, I've got our emissions footprint profile by year. And we want to make sure that that's obviously reducing year on year. On the next tab here, this is where either the business or procurement can come in and set the demand in units that they need to source from their suppliers. And we can also set and this is by category of products, so bags, bottles, and pallets. On the next screen, we'll have, we'll look at the suppliers for bags, the suppliers for bottles and pallets, and see how efficient and what their cost profiles are. But this screen is more around the business defining how many, bags, pallets, and that they need in the next, in the next 12 months, 24 months. They can set what we a procurement budget, so they've got to, make sure they can get all these products within a certain budget or costs, and a defined emission ceiling as well. So how much emissions are we allowed to, if we buy any of these products, we can't exceed that ceiling. But what I want to show you in here is so what the business can come in here and just manually type in the demand, or use last year's actuals, increase it by 10%, or certain drivers. What customers can do now is use exponential smoothing algorithms, which look at the historical data and use that pattern to forecast what's going to happen in the future. So to do that, users can come in here and either select one or all these products. If I just hold down the shift key. What's going on with my shift key? There we go. And they can come up to this forecast wizard at the top right. And then it will take them through a wizard, a setup wizard of, when do I want to start forecasting, and how far I want to go into the future. Over here, I'm going to take out auto detect seasonality and adjust outliers, because I want to show you this in the demo. You can select different historical periods, and then down here, I can tell it where I want to put these predicted results back into my model. So I'm going to put it into a version called actuals and projected. And then at the bottom right here, let me get this out of the way. If I hit preview, what it's doing, is it running? Here we go. What it's doing behind the scenes is it's running 9 exponential smoothing algorithms across the data. So bags, bottles, and pallets. It picks the most accurate fit out of the 9 algorithms for each different product type, and then uses those numbers to forecast out into the future. So each product type may have a different algorithm used to generate the numbers depending on the historical data. So what we got here on the screen is the fixed line here are my actuals. The dashed line here are the predicted results. And then the shaded area here is the confidence level. So how accurate are we in the numbers we're producing? So predictive forecasting isn't a magic fairy dust. It's not always going to give you the right answer. It depends on what your historical data is like as well. So we want to make sure the users understand with these shaded areas, can they trust these numbers, or are they, during COVID, there was toilet paper went all over the place, so it's very hard to forecast that moving forward. So should the users trust these numbers, or should they use their own business insights to enter the values manually? What the system also does as well, you'll see we've got some red boxes here. It automatically detects some outliers in your historical data. And what we can do is if I go outliers detected and adjust them, the system will automatically adjust the historical data, smooth it out to give us a better forecast moving forward. So at the moment, the predictive accuracy is medium. If I adjust these outliers and rerun it, what it'll do is, what it's done is move that, that red one, the purple one, and moved it up to the blue dot. So it's smoothed out my actuals, and it's going to give me a more accurate forecast moving forward. So you can see now the predictive accuracy is now set to high. So it's giving us a more accurate forecast moving forward. And if I come out of that and go okay and just go, now I'm going to just run it, it's going to go and run those predictive forecasts and put them into my demand moving forward. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. That's interesting. The predictive forecasting. Does anyone have any questions there just on so far on that demonstration that Kevin's done? Let him have some soft drink. What are you drinking exactly, Kevin? In that is that
water?
Oh.
Yeah, not that wine you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, not in that. Somewhere else. So, does anyone have any questions there, Chris? Did you have any questions from Carpe Datum? Did you have any questions there so far on that? Silence must be good, Kevin.
Cool. How much time have I got?
Sheila, where are we at the moment with our timing?
So we only have 30 minutes left.
Yeah, so we probably need to wrap it up pretty soon, Kevin, so that these folks can ask a couple more questions and get on with their day jobs or their evenings.
Fair enough. Let me quickly show a bit of the workflow capabilities, and then we can stop for questions. So I'm going to launch this application here called Guided Planning to take you through the workflow capabilities, and then I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint just to show you what we're bringing out this month as well. So on the left here we have a panel. We've got the name of the application. This could be FY23 revenue budget, whatever it may be. Below that we can have a description around the application. What is it? Give the user some guidelines and so forth. I guess from an IBM perspective, our ultimate goal is, from a budget and forecasting point of view, is to take the traditional approach of 90% data entry and 10% analysis. What we're trying to do at IBM with Planalytics is flip that on its head. We want to see only 10% data entry and 90% analysis to help drive better business decisions. So the way we're getting back down to that 10% data entry are things like predictive forecasting, driver-based models, breakback spreading, and so forth. So the users get, not updating each individual cell. They're using those capabilities to get that 10% data entry. They're making some minor tweaks in their plans and so forth, but they're spending most of their time analyzing results. And that's what we've done with Workspace, embedded it with latest visualizations, as you can see on the right here, with Mapbox integration and so forth. So the users can immediately see how is the organization trending, should we make corrective actions, and so forth. So we can put some descriptions around what the application is over here. Below that we have what we call announcements. So the budget administrator can send out some announcements around this application, so all the users will see it. So here I've got two announcements. I've got new products have been loaded on this date, and if I go to the next message, actuals have been refreshed on this date as well. There may be some driver assumptions. We may have changed a currency exchange rate or whatever it may be that may affect the model. We can put that information in as an announcement so users can automatically see that. Below that we have what we call tasks. So what we can do is break out the planning process into individual tasks and guide that user through that process. So the first task here, I've got update revenue. I've got a due date. Below that I have a number. You can have either one or a number of assets that the users need to open up and complete, and then once they've updated, in this case, their revenue numbers, they can come over here and put in some commentary around I've updated my revenue numbers in line with CPI index or inflation, and then go and submit that, and that obviously will go through the workflow to their manager or wherever it needs to go from there on. Down below that I've got an example of one that's been submitted. So update OPEX here. This has been submitted. It's been submitted by a person called 24 Retail Revenue Planner. I've got their comments in there, and then I've got the ability here to reject or approve this particular submission, and I can put some commentary in here as well. All of this triggers email notifications as well. So when I submit it, it will go to my managers to say, this budget has been submitted for your approval. Please go and review it. And the same with reject and approve as well. So an email notification is tied to this whole process as well. What are we bringing out this month in workflow? So let me get this window out of the way, is we're bringing in a Gantt chart so that the budget administrators can immediately see from a timeline perspective by task, where people are at. And they can see it, weeks 2 and 3, they have to review their last year financial results. Then they go into set budgets and how many people have done that. Up here, we've got the ability to see which tasks are complete, in progress, who's still, how many are still pending. You'll have the ability to, as well, if they're still pending and it's getting close to the due date, you can click on the notification button and it will go off and fire an email off them to remind them that they've got 2 days to complete this and so forth. And if I go to the next page, it's just a very similar view. But what they've done, this kind of what we call the monitor environment here, you can kind of set the screen up however you like. So in this case, they've brought in 3 different boxes and set up this page. So it's very dynamic, drag and drop, but it's to give the budget administrators an overview of where everyone is in their budget process, making sure everyone's on track of completing and so forth. So there is a lot of work being coming through in the workflow space. So this will be out this month on SaaS, and then Core 79 will be available on-prem next month. And so there's going to be a lot more enhancements coming out. So over here on the right, you can see the little email icon. That's kind of, this one's been grayed out because they've all submitted complete. There's no point notifying those guys, but these guys here haven't quite, still waiting for approvals and so forth. So we can send an email and it will automatically go to the person that's been assigned that task. Just give them a little, I guess, a little nice helping or a polite reminder that they need to complete this particular task where they're at. And then we're going to be bringing out things like matrix style workflow. So the ability to set up the workflow across 2 different dimensions. So not just one dimension, but you could bring in products and maybe an org structure and run the workflow across 2 different dimensions. The ability to do dependencies. So in this case, so review last year results. That we can set up a dependency that set budget limits is dependent on the first task they review last year's financial results. So only once that's completed can set budgets be started and stuff like that. So you can set those dependencies up. So the whole goal around this is to make sure it's very easy for budget administrators to set up new plans and budgets and send them out to their users, and then also the ability to easily track, notify, and see the progress of these budgets and making sure everything's on track. All right, so that's well, what I wanted to show today, Anthony. I'll hand it back over to you.
I need a bell, Kevin.
You need a what?
I need a bell.
I'm going to send you a little email notification there to say it's now, I've handed it to you.
Thank you. That's been very instructive, Kevin. Thanks very much for sharing these insights and the demonstration, of course, and explanation on how people can take advantage of containerization. Why don't we just put put it out now to all the participants who've been very kind and waiting, and I'm sure that you've all got lots of questions. So please turn on your microphones and turn up the volume, turn up the music, turn on your cameras, and let's talk a little bit and ask Kevin some questions let's put him under the spotlight, make him sweat a little bit, and ask him the questions while he's here, because otherwise he's going to run away in 5 minutes and you'll lose your opportunities. Amendra, do you have a question there?
Hi, Kev. Thanks, Anthony. I was just thinking, listening to you, is how do you see the role of the current TM1 admin changing, right? So a lot of the things that gets either automated or beyond our control, things that we do on a daily basis now, save data, restart tables and things like that. So I foresee that the role of the TM1 admin changing with the new environment for those who go onto this platform now.
Yeah, so we don't see it changing too much. What we're trying to do is provide better tools for the administrator. So rather than going into log files or, if you look at the TM1 server log or the transaction log, it's going to be a better interface for those to go and go through and interrogate those log files. It's now all going to be stored in a database. It's going to be easily queried and so forth, rather than just being stored in an ASCII file somewhere else. Giving the administrator better controls of backup and restore the environment. So we don't actually see the tasks that they're going to change too much from an admin perspective, but what we're going to be providing is a better interface and a better user experience from an administration point of view to be able to do their task on a daily basis. If the administrators are responsible for spinning up a new dev environment, again, that's going to be very much streamlined as well. That'd be just a touch of the button, and the administrator can just go and do that themselves, rather than getting IT involved and so forth. So yeah, I guess we don't see it evolving or changing too much. We're just we're going to give them a better user experience moving forward, and be able to serve their user population in a more effective way moving forward.
Just regarding your point about no access to the data directory anymore. For those who are using, trying to migrate or promote objects from your dev to your test or to your production, what are the alternatives that are going to be available?
Yeah, so there will be, in the Planalytics administration console, there will be a screen that will allow you to back up and restore from that window. So, and there are third-party tools out there that do this as well, and they will work with the Planalytics engine as well, because most of those third-party tools are using the REST API. So that's where we kind of see it moving forward. What we want to get away from is the ability to allow users to go into the database directory and copy a cube file from dev into production, or they copy the wrong file and overwrite some data, or they've copied too much. We want to give them a better user experience in migrating from test dev to production, all done through an admin console that will guide them through that process.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hi, Kevin. Robert here. Just a quick one. A couple of ones, sorry. First one is, how does licensing and containerization work?
Yep. So for on-premise customers, we have something what we call a modernization sales play. So we've been running this for a number of years now, and so we can take a client's existing licenses for TM1 Planalytics, and we can modernize them to the new containerized version. Effectively, when we modernize them, they end up with what we call PA Advanced. I'm not sure if you're familiar with PA Advanced, Rob, or not, but that's what when we trade you up, you get to PA Advanced, where you can, it's a simplified licensing model. So you either license the number of authorized users or the number of CPUs you want to run Planalytics on. And so we just modernize you up to that new license, and then you have entitlements to run Planning Analytics on Cloud Pak for data, or you can run it on premise. It's your choice, so you can keep running the existing Planning Analytics engine on a Windows environment, and then slowly transition off to Cloud Pak when you're ready. Obviously, that license will include all the Red Hat entitlements you require to, from an OpenShift point of view, to run it, and all the Cloud Pak licenses as well. And then the idea is then we'll have SaaS as well, so clients that don't want to run it on premise, and that'll be very similar to what we have for our customers today around the cloud adoption plays. We'll be able to transition you from on premise to either we'll have two versions of, I guess, our SaaS offering. So we've got Planning Analytics on cloud today, which is our predominant SaaS offering. It's our #1 selling SaaS offering at IBM as well. So it's doing very, very well. And then we'll have the Cloud Pak version of that. They're going to call that IBM Planning Analytics SaaS. So we'll have IBM Planning Analytics on cloud and IBM Planning Analytics SaaS, which will be the Cloud Pak Planning Analytics engine version of that. And we'll be able to transition users exactly the way we do today, from on-premise into a subscription-based model in a SaaS environment.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Well, my second one is we run a hybrid environment here with Anaplan. So we have Anaplan going out to a great many users, and then we have a core functionality that we in high level modeling in TM1. And we use things like Anaplan Connect for the two environments to integrate with each other. But we also use things like Splash TI when we want to run concurrent processes and things like that. And they all run off the back of execute command.
Yep.
So what's the alternative to that?
Yes. So so that will be that HTTP request new function that we'll be bringing through the. So you're using the execute command to run the processes in parallel and so forth?
Well, that's right. So we execute the Splash TI batch files, but Anaplan Connect batch files as well. We run execute.
Okay.
Execute command has been it's very nice to have that.
Yeah. So from a running processes or TM1 jobs in parallel, the run process that was on a couple of slides is designed to do that kind of run parallel. So in the past, you had to do the execute command because of some locking, for locking reasons and so forth. It's all gone away. So you can run processes in parallel without having to call an external, batch file and so forth to do that. We'll have to look at what else is running from an Anaplan, how you're calling Anaplan, and see if we can do that through an API call through the execute HTTP request.
Yeah.
There'll be a way of achieving that. There are third-party tools out there like OneCloud, which got acquired, I think, by Workiva recently, where they've got a REST API connected to Planning Analytics and Anaplan, and use that to do the transition. But yeah, we'll just have to look at different ways of doing it. There will be a way of achieving it, even if we have to put it out to a flat file somewhere and then pick it up. Anaplan picks it up, or we pick it up from Anaplan and stuff. But there will be a way around achieving that.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Is there any reason why you guys are not using Planning Analytics instead of
cost?
Cost?
It's cheap, because we go out to large, because Pacific National's got, we want to push our planning out of finance into operations, and we don't want to give planning analytics licenses out to all those users. So we find it's more cost effective to have Anaplan users and then have core finance people, smaller group subset of that, doing all.
We should have a chat to you after this with Octane around. So I mean, our list price is cheaper than Anaplan. So we don't lose on price to Anaplan. So if it gives you a better and simpler solution of just running everything in a single, performance management platform, I'm sure we can come up with something around, from a cost point of view. And then, so obviously, SaaS is another thing. A lot of clients that are moving to SaaS are seeing around about. So you obviously you're using Anaplan as SaaS and you're using Planalytics on premise. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So PA SaaS on average, our clients are seeing about a 30% cost saving.
Okay.
They see on average, and we can't, this is not an official, so please don't go away and say, we're going to do 25% improvement in performance, but generally we see around 25 to 30% improvement, just because we go out and look at different hardware vendors and we get them to present, and we run TM1 on all of them and see which one comes back faster. At the moment, AMD are coming back 20% faster than Intel. For the same chip types and so forth, and then obviously it de-risks it as well, the environment. So because IBM will do everything for you, the backups, the DRs, disaster recovery, workspace will be updated every single month, high availability, it will never go down. You get to choose when you want to do the upgrades though to the TM1 engine. It's the actual server itself, which is important, especially because a lot of customers are using Planalytics as a enterprise mission critical platform. We can't, a lot of our competitors will dictate when you do the upgrades because it's a multi-tenanted SaaS environment. Our server environment, so the TM1 database is, each environment is unique for each client, and they get to nominate when they want to do those upgrades. So you just log a support ticket, go, hey, upgrade my non-prod environment. And then they'll go do it overnight, come back in the morning, test it for a few weeks, do some user acceptance testing, and then we do a production. But so there's a lot of, the main reason people are going across is the cost saving. We're moving a major bank at the moment in Australia from, they're running effectively on premise, but they're hosted in AWS, and we're moving them across to Planalytics SaaS. We're going to save them $2 million USD a year by moving them off onto Planalytics SaaS. So they have a huge footprint. I think they've got 3 servers that are 2 terabytes of RAM and stuff, and they've got 11 effective environments across different business units across the bank. So they did some testing as well of performance, and they got a 25% uplift. They were using to do that parallel TI runs, they were using Hustle to do that, and then they rewrote that in native run processes, and that actually gave them a better performance as well. But overall, server startup time, generating reports was 25% faster.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
thanks there, Robert and Zelia, so far for those questions coming to Kevin. Got time for a few more questions. Can we hear from somebody else now? How about yourself, Andrew Davey? I didn't talk to you earlier when you came in the room. Did you have anything that you wanted to find out more about, or one lead? You came a little bit late from Tyro. Thanks for joining us. Did you have any questions as well? Robert, did you have any questions there? Andrew doesn't have any questions at the moment. Did you have any more questions to ask, Robert?
No, I'm good. But what I'll do is I'll hang on the call after this one, just to go through our specific situation, which I wouldn't want to discuss.
Sure, back a little bit and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Adam Buckle, are you still with us? Do you have anything that you wanted to ask Kevin while we're here?
Yeah. Hi, Anthony. Kevin, interesting what you were just talking about. We have a number of clients that are using on-prem TM1 hosted by AWS or any of the other cloud providers. So what you're saying is that the timing is right for us to now consider moving to the IBM SaaS environment, right?
100%. yeah, clients are seeing a lot of benefits, and obviously reducing costs, but still maintaining that control around when I think the biggest concern about moving to to a cloud or SaaS offering is how do the upgrades happen, and a lot of our clients they're mission critical platforms, and you can't be dictated by the vendor of when the upgrades occur. You need to be able to nominate a quiet time outside of their budget window to do these upgrades, and that's what IBM is offering our clients. And it's even though we're saying the timing is right now, it's not like it's a new SaaS is not new. It is, as I mentioned before, IBM's #1 selling SaaS product, and we have thousands of products, and it's selling within IBM very, very well. Out of every 10 deals that we're doing at the moment, 9 are SaaS. So it's a very mature environment. We've got thousands of customers around the world using it today. So yeah, if anyone is interested in it, please reach out to myself and Octane, and we can take you through it. Do some costing so you can see what we generally do is get what you've from a hardware perspective that you're either running on-prem or someone else's cloud. We'll then do an apples to apples comparison to what that would cost from a SaaS point of view, and that will help you generate a business case. We can do things like proof of platforms to help you test it out before committing to it. So load your data up there, you hook into your source systems, set up single sign-on, making sure that everything that you do today works exactly as you expect it. With the obviously our goal is to improve the performance and the reliability of it. The other thing we're noticing as well is, so we're doing around about 100 upgrades a day at IBM for our SaaS customers around the world. Clients generally do an upgrade every year, if they're lucky, more like 2 or 3 years. So it's not a very well rehearsed activity. And so if things go wrong, then it takes a little bit of time to resolve that. We're at IBM, we're very rehearsed at it. We're not, we're obviously no one's perfect, but we're very rehearsed, and we're doing a lot of these every single day. And because it's within our environment, it's a controlled environment, so we know exactly the versions of the OS, the fix packs, and everything. So the upgrades become a lot more smoother when we're doing it for you. But you get to control that when that happens, which is the important part.
Our experience with SaaS has been excellent. So as a vendor, as an IBM vendor, we probably make a bit better margin when we sell on-prem, but because of other reasons, we almost exclusively in the last 5 years have been recommending and selling SaaS. I can't recall any on-prem that we've recommended and sold. There's no reason for it. And the other cool thing about SaaS is once we find that people are onto the platform, it's almost always a land and expand, because you'd go in, and because it's so much easier to distribute TM1 and use TM1 in that environment and to scale up so easily without any friction, it's almost a given that within months the client side will have an increase of usage and the footprint increases. So from our perspective, where we sit as a vendor, it is even though we can look at the margin, go, it's not that much, but because of the expansion that comes with a SaaS environment, it's a no-brainer. And plus, it's so much easier, because then our conversation with the client is about the functionality, how to use TM1, what to do more with it, instead of looking at upgrades and things like that. And spending time on upgrades and stuff like that, patches, is not value add neither for us nor for the client. So it's in the current climate, I think it's a no-brainer nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, clients are just looking at consuming a solution or a business outcome. They don't want to be responsible for I hope there's no IT people on the call, but the boring stuff, backups, restores, the disaster recovery, testing, that sort of stuff. And from a security point of view today, even though a lot of this is on premise and stuff like that, but the security that's coming down the pipeline with things like critical infrastructure bill and all that sort of stuff is, it's becoming very hard for clients to be able to do that, and provide that information to regulators as well around how secure their environments are and so forth. And IBM does that all. When you sign up, we got all the certification. We can give it to you, our penetration reports that you can submit to your regulators and internally as well around the controls around the product. But yeah, it's becoming more and more. It used to be pretty, you had to do a few things and off you went, but now it's very, very specific around security and compliance and auditing and penetration tests and stuff like that. It's becoming very hard for our clients to keep up with that sort of requirements to make sure they answer to the regulators and so forth. So that becomes all IBM's responsibility. Now CISO will work with the government and look at what's coming down the pipeline to make sure that our data centers and our solutions meet that or exceed that criteria. So the critical infrastructure bill is going to be very, very specific, and it doesn't. Financial institutions used to be the ones that used to get hit the heaviest, but now it's around all critical infrastructure. So utilities, supermarkets, transport. They all have to adhere to a certain standards moving forward. I think it was influenced a lot by the US and how they got hacked and it knocked out the gas lines and stuff. And I think it was was it East or West Coast that ran out of gas. So making sure that it's all from a cybersecurity point of view, it's all covered off and so forth. So, but that's something definitely that IBM can help our clients with.
Thanks very much, Kevin. That's been awesome. One more time for asking questions, and then we'll wrap it up and give Kevin a clap. Anybody else want to quickly get in a question before we wrap things up today? All good? All right. Thanks very much, Kevin. Great job. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hope to see all of you again. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Kev.
All right.
Thanks
for inviting me.